The topic of this talk is how to sell more of your window and conservatory leads using a form and some photographs. Let me tell you how I first discovered this in the 1980s when I first started selling windows and doors. I was working for a company called Windercraft, who you may or may not have heard of. We had about 120 salespeople, mostly the Midlands and the North. And every week there was a circular came around like a newsletter, and it had the top 50 salespeople by conversion rate and by the amount they sold. And one guy, Vic Phipps, was miles ahead of everybody else. After I'd been working there about a year, I was in the top 10, but I couldn't get anywhere near Vic. After the first quarter, I went to the first show that we had, where the winner got presented with £10,000 and a holiday and all the rest of it. We did this every quarter. And I expected this snazzy superstar to walk up on the stage. And it turned out to be an old chap, grey hair, slim, in his late 50s, teetered up there. So I'm in my late 50s now, of course, as well. But in the 20s, when I was in my 20s, he looked very old. Collected his prize, very humble chap. And I thought, my God, how does he sell as much? So I asked one of his colleagues, I never did meet him. I believe he's still selling today, must be in his late 70s now. And his colleague says, oh, he's got photographs of every job he's ever done. And when he goes to a certain area in the Midlands, he has photograph albums just for that area. And you can say, oh, that's the one up the street, this is this. You can show all the different design options. And also, we only had 3 products in those days, a brown window, a white window, and an aluminium window. He's got an estate car which has bread racks that slide out, and he has all 3 samples in this vehicle, but mainly it's the photographs. So I thought, right, that's it, photographs from now on. So I started photographing everything I did before and after, and I learned that customers, if I photograph it from the outside, they're kind of, oh yeah, that's interesting, that's what we want. Photograph it from the inside looking out, and they're like, wow, yeah, they can visualize it in their property. And then I discovered, because I take before and after photographs, if I show them before and the after, it's like, wow, yes, look at the difference it makes. And that started creating desire. But because with all the products there are nowadays, bifolds, French doors, conservatories, vertical sliders, casements, flush casements, etc., there are so many options that I designed a form to have all the different options in. And over the years, I got my conversion rate up to 82%. And that's where it stayed, and that's where it is today. I still go out selling today. I work with half a dozen window companies around the country, 1 or 2 days a month, and help them grow. And I've shared my techniques with lots of people in various audiences, and they get very similar results. In fact, people come up saying, wow, what you showed me 20 years ago has made me millions. And I'm going to share that with you now in the next 20 minutes. It's very simple to show you. It's very difficult for you to put into operation. Give you an example of it. I was out with a lad called Jamie. He's a conservatory salesman, and there's 5 salesmen in the team. They've got a conversion rate of over 50% on conservatories. They do about 5 million a year, very professional, 3-sit process. Jamie, very knowledgeable in conservatories. He's been manufacturing them for 10 years. They just started selling, and he got his conversion rate up to 25%, 1 in 4, but couldn't push it beyond that. So I said, right, come out with me. We'll go out for 3 days, 1 day a month for 3 days, and I'll show you how to use this form and how to use the photographs. So we went on the first appointment, which was this. So this is the before photograph, and this is the simulation that Jamie came up with afterwards. On this visit, all I was going to do was the fact find and the design, and then we're going to invite them back to the showroom to look at the different simulations, to pick the one that we've tuned into, and then show them the different specification, give them price guides, and then send them the quote. That's the system that this company used. So I said to Jamie, right, watch me, say nothing. I do all the talking. So we pulled up in my van, all nicely sign written, all the samples in it. Went in there, did the fact find and photographs, and afterwards I said to him, right, what did you think of that? He says, well, I'm shocked. I says, why did you say shocked? He says, well, first of all, you said you'll do all the talking and I'm to say nothing, but you didn't do any talking, they did all the talking. You asked questions, they talked. I says, yeah, that's what selling is. It's not you talking, it's them talking. He said, right. And he says, and also when you went to the van, I went to the van to get some little glass samples and the heat lamp. And he said, when you were out there, the customer said, wow, he really knows his stuff, doesn't he, on conservatories? They were absolutely impressed. If they don't buy, nobody will buy. And that was just off the fact find and photographs before we took it to the next level. So I'm going to share with you how that system works. That's just common with most appointments that I go on, and if you use the system, you'll get the same responses. People say to me, it's just like shopping this, as opposed to, being sold to. In fact, it's a bit like painting by numbers. If you own the company and you've got salespeople, you can just give them this system, and people who can't normally sell very well or wouldn't know how to sell, all of a sudden become experts because they're asking exactly the right questions from the form and showing exactly the right photographs to go with each question, in a nutshell. So it's selling by numbers. Jamie, by the way, after 3 sessions, had his conversion rate up to just under 50%. So that doubled his conversion rate, which for the company would have added, I don't know, an extra $500,000 to the turnover, perhaps $1 million. Just that little technique. And the customers happily pay more money. What the form looks like is this. There are 2 parts to the form. The first part of the form is the fact find and the design. So you've got some spaces here to draw windows in. You've got graph paper on the back, and we've got some fact find questions. The second part of the form is the design and the specification. The design, each one of these pages is for a different product. This is vertical sliding, casement, entrance doors, conservatories. Yeah? Now, this is not death by filling in forms. It's actually only a 5 or 10 minute process with the customer. And you're only ever going to fill in one of these normally, whichever product the customer is interested in. And then by default, you would fill these in anyway when you're finding out what the customer wants and drawing out the windows. The form itself, the more detailed form which we'll send you, it looks like this basically. To show you the psychology behind it, selling, in my experience, is a game of 2 halves. The first half is having the customer sold on you and your product. The customer has to think you're the one within the first 3 steps. I want to buy off you. You know when you get your customers to that stage anyway, with this you can create it every time, and more importantly, you can get other people to create it every time. But that doesn't mean they're going to buy off you. We've all had customers who you're absolutely eating out your hand, you're the one, they're going to buy, and we never hear from them again. So the second half is closing the customer or coming to an agreement that they're happy with, that you're all happy with. The form deals with the first 3. There are 5 steps in the sales process: fact, find, and measure, then agreeing the perfect design, then discussing the best specification for them, then talking about the different price options or send them a quotation with different price options. Never one price in my experience, price options. And then agreeing the next step. Each step is an art to be mastered. The fact find form and design form masters the first 3 by default and doesn't get into the next ones. So this is about having the customer believing and convinced that you're the one by default of your professionalism. The fact find form, one of the talks I did yesterday was just on the fact find form. So if you connect to the link, you'll be able to watch the 20-minute talk on the fact find form. I'm not going to go into too much detail this morning on it. But what I will show you is this. Part of the fact find, this is a little section from in here on the fact find form. So we're asking the customer, what about further reducing cold zones? Is solar warming a problem in any of the rooms? Do any of the rooms overheat? What about condensation? Do you get condensation in any rooms? What about soundproofing in any particular rooms at any elevation and so on? Now, if you notice next to each one, there's a reference number. That reference number on my iPad is an album. So on soundproofing, I've got perhaps 30 photographs and diagrams and so on. Not that I'm going to show the customer all of those. I'll very briefly show them and scratch exactly where they itch with this. You can also have a sales presenter with each one of those having a page, which is what I'm working on at the moment. Now, next to it, for example, if you want to further upgrade soundproofing, this here gives you a clue as to what part of the product does that. You need a frame that's straight and dynamically stable, doesn't twist and warp. Because once you can see daylight, you haven't got soundproofing anymore. You need a sealed unit that's much better than normal double glazing, which, if you're experiencing, you know, it's an asymmetric unit, laminated outside, 4mm inside. 60% better than single glazing. Normal double glazing is only 20% better. And of course, you need high compression hardware. You need that fridge door seal to get soundproofing. So if the customer, you tick soundproof, and they're the three things we'll show the customer. Not now, but later on, when we come to that stage when we're with the customer. But for each one, we need evidence and proof. So for example, you'll be able to show them photographs of low iron glass. If they've got condensation, there's an argument for using low iron glass on the outside to let more heat in. It's clear instead of green. I have little samples to show the customer, and they go, oh, wow, didn't know that. And then if you have a soft coat instead of a hard coat, it traps the heat, so the inner pane warms up. So I'm never talking to customers about aerated glass. Everybody else does that. I'm saying, yeah, they're all aerated. But what you need is this combination of aerated to get the pane nice and warm with a warm edge spacer bar. Wow, no one's mentioned that in that way, you see. And of course, you need something to show the customer what a coating is, a soft coat, a metal coating that you can't see, so you can show them a diagram of it. Also, you can download various bits and pieces to show what an asymmetric unit is and then prove it to the customer by showing them it's 50% better than single glazing, whereas normal double glazing is only 20% more effective from a soundproofing point of view. It's the little details like this that you get brownie points for, and it's that little bit better than the competition. And once you get to a certain critical mass and brownie points, there's a tipping point where the customer thinks, this is the real deal, you're the one. Now, your most inexperienced salespeople do this because in the fact-find form, they're just ticking, but knowing what they're going to show the customer later. Now, if security or soundproof is an issue and they've got condensation, you might want to consider low iron laminated glass instead of, so there's a picture of that you can show customers. For high compression, what I like to do is photograph different hinges. It obviously shows up much better on an iPad versus a normal hinge, which gives you no compression. And then if you've actually got a hinge to show customers, look, because soundproofing is an issue for you, and we don't want any air leakage, you need to go for a high compression hinge, which this is what it looks like. It's not that much more than a standard hinge. So we're not saying to the customer, we do this, we do that. Our window's brilliant. We're saying, here's what you need, and that's what I'll quote you for. Okay. So the next part of the form is the design. I've particularly picked a conservatory design, so I can show you some photographs relevant to that. So the design section of the fact-find form, with a conservatory, I like to start off with an abutment wall, because most people are going to use it all year round. And any cavity insulated wall they've got is the equivalent of a 10-tog quilt. Double glazing is the equivalent of a 1-tog quilt. U-value of 1.6, let's say. Cavity insulated wall, a U-value of 0.16. So I talk about, and I say to a customer, look, you're allowed 50% 10-tog quilt around you, unless you want to go into planning permission. You might not want the 50%, but the first question is, are you interested in an abutment wall? Let me show you what an abutment wall is, and then the photographs come out. And then, of course, we can go on to the dwarf wall height, parts solid walls or not. Do you want pillars in the middle? Do you want corner posts? And then you've got all the good detail, internal pelmet, cornice. You don't miss anything because we're taking the form and we're showing the customer beautiful photographs that you've taken of your fabulous jobs. And it's showing those photographs that has the customer sold on you and the product. And make sure they're good quality, fabulous photographs. So they go, wow, that looks gorgeous. So, for example, here's a nice tool. This is the one I did for Ultraframe, where we came up with a presenter for them. And this shows where the heat escapes out of the conservatory. So any pillars and posts, if it's insulated, stops that heat escaping. An abutment wall would go here for about 0.5 meter. So then I would show customer what an abutment wall is, for example. So here's an abutment wall. getting built. Then it's insulated, plasterboarded, and that's what it looks like in a proper house. So instead of the glass starting against the house wall, you've got this abutment wall. Do you like the look of that, Mr. and Smith? Because if you do, you've got a square metre of tent tog quilt, and we need as much tent tog quilt as we can get in here if you're going to use it all year round. 99% of the customers like that. I discovered if I show them a pillar here as well, they go, oh, that's suitable. No, we just want a conservatory. But if I just show them that, yeah, want it. You can hide drain pipes behind it. You can put things on it. So that's an abutment wall. Then, of course, I move on to the next thing on the tick list is, okay, do you want any pillars or posts? And then you can show them what pillars and posts look like with the wow photographs, preferably the ones you've taken. The next option might be, where do you want your transom? Do you want it at top openings or do you want it in the middle? So we all know the argument if we've sold conservatories. If it's a top opener, it's at eyesight when you're standing up. Whereas if it's in the middle, you can see your garden, and when you're sitting down, you can see your garden. So mid-rails or transoms in the middle of the conservatory are becoming very popular. So one of the questions, of course, is, okay then, if you want it in the middle, do you want it to be a casement window or do you want to put a vertical sliding window in? Nowadays, there's not much difference in price. You can get them for 199 quid any size now, with toughened glass. I won't mention the stand, not getting paid. But, so you're showing customers this. Here's the one we did where we did this. Here's another one I did. Oh, it's just up the road, actually. Guess what? You're becoming the one. And so are your salespeople. Then we get to the specification. So now we've picked the perfect design for the conservatory, and we know what the customer wants. And I like to go through the window frame, the window hardware, the door frame, the roof bars, roof glazing, and the base and footings. Now, most of you do it to a certain standard anyway, but that's no good to a customer. You can't just be saying, we do it like this, because they're going to go, all right, well, let's get some more quotes and see how others do it. You've got to tailor each one to their exact circumstances and remind them of what they told you in the fact find. Right, because you're going to use this all year round, it's no good just putting a standard base in. We need to go for a nice thermal base. That's got their attention. And then you need to show them what a nice thermal base is. So one thing one of my clients had done, we had 3 different types of base done. And we can show the customer, this is the one you need. Well, by default, they're expecting it to be more money, and it can be more per square meter and so on. If they say, well, we've been quoted this for the base, you can say, well, yeah, we'd be less than that, but that's this quality, and so on, you see. Okay, what about with conservatories again? Most of the time, they want to use it all year round. So I have a nice photograph of Mr. and Mrs. Baker, who were baking hot, no pun intended, with the conservatory. Even though they had Pilkington Active Blue on, it was still just too hot. So they went for this design and then put a different roof glazing on that is much better. To prove it, I use a heat lamp. In my van, it's like an Aladdin's cave of various samples and bits and pieces. But one thing is, if you're just using a normal heat reflective roof glass, then this example here that was done, this takes Pilkington Active Blue. They've run a heat lamp through it, and then they've put a thermometer on the glass. There's actually a video of it as well. And you can see that the temperature was 20 degrees inside. Once the heat lamp went on, the temperature went up to 40 degrees. This particular glass, Celsius 1, temperature is 20 degrees, heat lamp on it for 10 minutes, it went up a couple of degrees, 24 degrees or something. That's impressive. It's even more impressive when you put it on. Does anyone here, you're all double glazing experts, know what the best roof glass is in terms of soft coat and heat reflective and that kind of thing? Well, I'll let you know a secret, because they don't announce it to everyone. They use a double soft coat. The soft coat, the outside pane, inside the outside pane, and the inside pane. Then they put the heat reflective on, and that just stops it dead. Normally, you just use one soft coat heat reflective. So I talk to customers in terms of, you're going to need a double. We're in the sun half the day. We don't want it to overheat. We're going to have to go for double soft coat and heat reflective. That's the conversation. Wow, what's this? Let me show you samples. Never mentioning brand. But it's all triggered from the form and the photographs. So basically, in a nutshell, people love to buy but hate being sold to. They love photographs, especially before and after photographs. And the foam just makes sure that you nail it all. Little tip with the foam. When you're measuring and designing, the foam is nowhere to be seen. You ask them all the fact-finding questions. You're getting design ideas, whether it's windows or conservatories. There comes a stage when you sit down with the customer, and that's when the foam comes out to go over the detail. And that's it, as simple as that. I'm happy to send the form to you. Just leave your details, and then you can start using it yourself. The hard part is photographing your jobs before and after. I recommend everyone you take all of your jobs, one door, photograph from the inside before and after, and then the inside after, the outside. Good camera, iPhone 7, or a good iOS phone or whatever. And that's it. Once you master it, which does take a while, because it's not natural, you can literally sell twice as much. You can get much better prices, and that's what it takes to get to the beach. Once you're getting good, profitable money, then you can do what you want in life, can't you? And it's down to the conversion rate and the markup you get.